Good day, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the nervous system. So, the nervous system is the master controlling and communicating system of your body. So, every thought, action, and emotion, no, nagre-reflect ng activity ng nervous system. It's it's a signaling device, no, yung mga electrical impulses. And that's a means of communicating with body cells through it. So, yung yung action ng yung galawan ng nervous system is rapid and specific, and it can cause almost immediate responses. So your endocrine system, no, just in just in comparison, it's the second important regulating system, and they use and produce hormones to regulate your body system, no? While the nervous system, they use electrical impulses, your endocrine system utilizes hormones. So, to carry out its normal role, the nervous system has three overlapping functions. First, it uses its millions of sensory receptors. So, that is to monitor changes, no, changes. When there's a change, that's a stimuli occurring in both inside and outside of the body. So, yung gathered na information na yun na yung term natin na sensory input. So, yun, yung processes, after nun, nagpa-process na siya, ini-interpret yung sensory input na yun, and decide what should be done at the moment. Yun yung tinatawag natin na integration. Then, it then affects or causes a response by activating muscular glands via your motor output na. So, ayan, sensory input sa stimuli, integration, pinaprocess na niyan, interpret. Then, nagkakaroon ng effect or cause by activating yung mga muscles or glands. That's your motor output na. So, organization of the nervous system.
The primary function of the nervous system is to communicate information. It works kind of like this diagram where we sense information. We sense our environment, we see our surroundings. We also sense our internal environment, things like our body temperature, our blood pressure, and all of this information that we sense, whether it's from outside of our body or inside of our body, gets input into a central area called the central nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. And what the brain and the spinal cord will do is prioritize all of this incoming sensory information and decide what to take action on. Any motor command that leaves the central nervous system will go out to possibly skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, the heart, glands, what's known as an effector, to bring about a response. And so this is the basic direction of information flow, that there's sensory information that comes into the brain and spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord is going to integrate that information, put it together, prioritize it, decide what to pay attention to, and then there's motor information that carries commands out to the body. So let's take a look at the organization of the nervous system first in a more anatomic way, and then we'll look at a flow chart. And so we saw that all of the information that we're sensing is getting shuttled into the brain and spinal cord, which I'm outlining here. So the brain and spinal cord make up the central nervous system. And all of these other nerves that we see in yellow make up what's called the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is the part of the nervous system that is both bringing sensory information in and carrying the motor information out. So let's look at the organization of the nervous system in a different way. What we're saying is that there is a sensory division, also known as an afferent division, that will bring information into the central nervous system. Central nervous system, we said, is going to process that information, decide what to pay attention to, and then send directions out to the body through the motor division, also known as the efferent division. So the brain and the spinal cord, we know, make up the central nervous system. And so I put a line separating that from the sensory and the motor divisions make up what's called the peripheral nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system has a few divisions. As far as the sensory division goes, it's just plain the sensory division, bringing sensory information in. But as far as the motor division goes, the motor division is subcategorized. Let me show you. We can think of the motor division or the efferent division as having two different types of actions. Either it's innervating skeletal muscle, which is voluntary. The neuromuscular junction is part of the somatic division, so the somatic division is voluntary. But the motor division is also going to send commands to smooth muscle, the heart, glands, things that are involuntary, and that's what's known as the autonomic division. The autonomic division is subdivided into two parts. The autonomic division is made up of the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The way that the autonomic nervous system works, or this autonomic division, is that the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions innervate the same structures but have opposite effects. So in other words, one will speed it up and the other will slow it down. That's just a general observation. There are exceptions to that, but this is the basic organization of the nervous system.
Okay. So as we have listen kanina, you have your central nervous system. That's your brain and your spinal cord. Then you have your peripheral nervous systems. That's those parts of the nervous system outside of your CNS. So yung PNS na yan, it's mostly nerves na lang that expand from your brain to the spinal cord. So yung mga spinal nerves, yun yung nagkikarry nung, remember, nervous system uses electrical impulses. Sila yung nagdadala nung mga impulses na yon to and from the spinal cord. So, yan. So, first is we have your sensory or afferent. So, don't be confused with afferent and efferent. One mnemonic to that is letter A. So, ascending, papunta ng brain. So, afferent, sensory. So, consists of nerves that convey impulses to the central nervous system. So, padulong sa imong brain. So, that is ascending, afferent. Dili malibog ha. So, you have, in your sensory or afferent division, you have your somatic sensory fibers. That sensory fibers delivering impulses from the skin, skeletal muscles, and joints. And then you have your visceral sensory fibers or visceral afferents that transmit impulses from the visceral organs. Okay? So your motor or afferent division, it carries impulses from the CNS to effector organs. So, first is your somatic nervous system. So, that is also called your voluntary nervous system kasi yun yung nagkocontrol ng skeletal muscles. And again, masasabihan mo naman ng skeletal muscles mo on what to do. Yung autonomic nervous system mo, that's your involuntary nervous system. No? Sila yung responsible na mag-regulate ng events, yung cardiac and smooth muscles and glands. Because remember, your autonomic nervous system is involuntary. So, iba, yung chan mo, yung puso mo, hindi mo naman sasabihin, ngayon ka lang mag-pump or stop mo na pump. No. So, your autonomic naman has parasympathetic and sympathetic, which will be discussed later on. So, yung sympathetic and parasympathetic, ano yan sila? Opposite yan sila, no? Sympathetic yung nag-stimulate, while yung parasympathetic naman ang nag-inhibit. So, your nervous tissue is made up of two principal cell types. That's your supporting cells and of course, your neuron. So, punta muna tayo sa supporting cells. So, supporting cells in the CNS are lumped together, no, as like your neuroglia. Yan. So, neuroglia is what we know as the nerve glue. Yan. Hindi nakikita. Sandali. That's your nerve glue. Yan. So, neuroglia includes many types of cells that nagsusupport, insulate, and protect yung ating napaka-delicate na neurons. So, first is your astrocytes. Astrocytes are abundant star-shaped cells that account for nearly half of the neural tissue. So, their numerous projections have swollen ends that cling to the neurons. Ayan. Ito yung neurons. Ito yung astrocytes. Diba? Para siyang star. It's a star shape. Yung mga projections niya, ayan, sila yung nag-cling to the neurons. So, yun yung nag-leaving barrier between capillaries and neurons, no? Para nagkakaroon ng capillary permeability. So, yung trabaho niya is to make exchanges between the two. In this way, no, they help protect the neurons from harmful substances that might be in the blood. So, astrocytes also help control the chemical environment in the brain by mopping up leaked potassium ions and recapturing released neurotransmitters. Next is your microglia. Your microglia are spider-like phagocytes. So they monitor the health of the nearby neurons and dispose of debris. So that's because they're a phagocyte, no? They dispose of debris. Next is your ependymal cells. They line the central cavities of the brain and of the spinal cord, no, with the cilia, and they help circulate your cerebrospinal fluid that fills those cavities and form a protective cushion around the CNS. So don't forget, no, if ano yung tumutulong ng CSF na mag-flow, no, mag-regulate ng kanilang galawan and mag-fill ng cavities. Yun yung trabaho ng ependymal cells natin. Next is your oligodendrocytes. So your oligodendrocytes, ayan, para siyang wrapper. They wrap their flat extensions tightly around those nerve fibers and producing fatty insulating coverings called your myelin sheaths. Yan. So, itong mga neuroglia na yan, kahit yung mga neuroglia yan, kahit wag niyo siya i-mistake sa neurons. Kasi kahit minsan nagkakamukha sila, hindi yan nila kaya mag-transmit ng nerve impulses. No? The ability to transmit nerve impulses is sa neurons lang talaga yan. So, yung mga glial cells naman, itong mga neuroglia, never forget na they never lose their ability to divide. Whereas yung neurons, they do, no? They lose their ability to divide. That's why, pag marinig niyo yung mga mostly brain tumors, yan yung mga gliomas, no? They are formed by your neuroglial cells because, yan, they are more prone to division. So, pas lumalaki yung tumor, kumakalat. No? Yan, dito pala yan. So, supporting cells, they are not able to transmit nerve impulses while neurons can and never lose their ability to divide. Ayan, dyan pala. So, the supporting cells in your PNS, that's your Schwann cells and sa PNS naman tayo, the supporting cells there is your Schwann cells and your satellite cells. Your Schwann cells naman, they form the myelin sheath around the nerve fibers. Pero yun yung nasa PNS na. And remember, dito sa CNS, yung oligodendrocytes, no, nagpo-form ng fatty insulating called myelin sheaths. While sa PNS naman, that's your Schwann cells. Your satellite cells, they act as protective cushioning cells. Okay? So, dito na tayo sa neurons. Neurons or nerve cells, they are highly specialized to transmit messages from one part of the body to another. So, common features of your neurons, all of these have a cell body. Ayan. So, yung cell body that contains the nucleus and it's the metabolic center of the cell. So, it also has one or more slender processes extending from the cell body. So, yung cell body na yan, that's the metabolic center of the neuron. It's a transparent nucleus and contains a conspicuous nucleolus. The cytoplasm surrounding the nucleus, they contain the usual organelles, pero except that they lack centrioles. Yan. Kaya din, di ba, hindi siya masyado nagde-divide kasi lack centrioles. The rough ER sa neurons, yan yung tinatawag natin na knee cell bodies. Meron ding neurofibrils doon, no? And these are intermediate filaments that are important in maintaining cell shape, particularly abundant in the cell body. So we have your arm-like processes or fibers, no? They vary in length, usually around the length from microscopic to about, I don't know, 7 feet in the tallest humans. So, the longest ones in humans reach from the lumbar region of the spine to the great toe. So, ayan. Yun yung mga fibers na yan. Kasi, syempre, ito yung pumupunta sa different parts ng body. No? So, the neurons may have, first, we have your dendrites. So, dendrites, they convey, these are shorter. They convey incoming messages or electrical signals towards the body, towards the cell body. So, don't forget, dendrites, may arrow na yan. Towards, they convey, no? Sila yung pumapasok ng electrical signals toward the cell body. Yung axons naman is, kita nyo, yung arrow away from the cell body. So, sila na yung nagdadala to the different parts of the body. So, yan. Don't forget, isa lang yung axon, and they arise from a cone-like region of the cell body called your axon hillock. Yan. So, they branch profusely at their terminal end. Yan. Pwede na sila branch, forming hundreds to thousands of axon terminals. Yan. So, yung mga axon terminals na yan, they contain, meron yan, pag i-zoom mo yan, merong mga meron yung mga vesicles. Yan. Or membranous sacs. And doon yung ating mga neurotransmitters. So, next wait, hanap tayo ng picture if meron pa dito. Ayan. Ito yung axon terminals. Tapos, merong synaptic cleft. Diba? May space. Sana ba tayo? Kita niyo yun. Ayan. So, axon terminal is separated from the neuron by a tiny gap or a space called the synaptic cleft. So, yun na yung space na yun. So, yung functional junction na yun is called a synapse. So, synapse means to clasp or to join. So, hindi naman talaga sila actually nag-join, no? But we will learn more about synapses and the events that occur in a bit later. So, your myelin sheaths, no? Don't forget, sa CNS is yung oligodendrocytes, while outside the CNS, sa PNS, that's your Schwann cells. So, your myelin sheaths, these are whitish, fatty material which has a waxy appearance that cover most of your long nerve fibers. So, ang purpose lang naman yan is to protect and insulate those fibers para mag-increase yung transmission rate ng nerve impulses. So, si Schwann cells, again, myelinates axons outside the CNS. Diba? Ayan. So, ito, buzzword into. Sa Schwann cells, you have your nodes of Ranvier. So, ang yung nodes of Ranvier na yan, ayan. Yan yung parang gaps. No? Next, again, don't forget, your Schwann cells have a neurylema, while your oligodendrocytes lack a neurylema. So, multiple sclerosis, I'm sure we're familiar with this. So, it's an autoimmune disease in which a protein component of the sheath is attacked. So, kaya yun inaatake ng may umaatake sa mga myelin sheaths, mga the fibers, so nasisira sila. And dahil pagkasira nila, no, nagiging, kumbaga, parang nagiging kubal sila. Ang tawag niyan, yung sclerosis. Kaya nagkakaroon ng short circuit ng electrical current. So, yun, yung mga patients na ganito, they have visual and speech disturbances. Then, nawawala yung ability nila to control their muscles. No? So, nagiging disabled talaga sila. So, nowadays, no, meron namang mga injections for it para sa symptoms. Pero, there's no definite cure. So, let's go to the terminology of your neurons. So, if yung mga clusters ng neuron cell bodies, no, pag nasa loob sila ng CNS, yun yung tinatawag na nuclei, cell bodies found in the CNS in clusters. Pero pag nasa PNS sila, that's your ganglia. Okay? Pag nasa CNS sila, those clusters are called nuclei. Pag outside ng CNS, doon sa PNS, that's your ganglia. When we say nerve fibers naman, pag andun sila sa CNS, they are termed tracts. Pero pag nasa PNS sila, they are termed nerves. So, yung white matter, they consist of dense collection of myelinated fibers or tracts. No? And your gray matter, they contain mostly unmyelinated fibers and cell bodies. So, based on the functional classification, so pag sinabi mong functional classification, according to the direction the nerve impulse is traveling to the CNS. So, don't forget, no, sensory, afferent, ascending, papunta sa brain. Papunta pa lang sa brain, pasaka, ascending. Neurons carrying impulses from the sensory receptors to CNS. Cell bodies are always found in a ganglion outside the CNS. So, you have your simpler types of sensory receptors. So, for the skin, no, you have your pain receptors. No. And in your muscles and tendons, you have your proprioceptors. Yan. So, yung mga proprioceptors, they detect the amount of stretch or tension in skeletal muscles. And they send information to the brain so that the upper adjustments can be made to maintain balance and normal posture. Ayan. So, functional classifications, you have your free nerve endings. For your pain and temperature receptor, Meissner corpuscle touch receptor, lamellar corpuscle deep pressure receptor, your Golgi tendon organ for proprioception, and also we have your muscle spindle. So next is your motor. So papunta na from the CNS to your muscles and glands. So we have your interneurons or association neurons. They connect the motor and sensory neurons in neural pathways. So, cell bodies are typically located in the CNS. So, ayan. So, we have your multipolar neuron, no? These are the most common structural type. Your bipolar, ayan, bipolar neuron. Bipolar neuron. They are neurons with two processes, an axon and a dendrite. No. Then we have your unipolar neuron. Single process emerging from the cell body. So, ayan, unipolar. Very short. No, it's very short and divides almost approximately into proximal and distal peripheral processes. Again, your multipolar neuron, di ba? Several processes, and it is the most common structural type. Ayan, di ba? Multipolar. Your unipolar is single lang, isa lang ang process emerging from the cell body. While your bipolar, dalawa. So there are two major functional properties. So first is irritability. It's the ability to respond to a stimulus and convert it into a nerve impulse. Conductivity is the ability to transmit the impulse to other neurons, muscles, or organs. So ayan, we have your action potential and generation. So, no, the plasma membrane, actually, hahanap tayo ng ano nito. Kasi bas naiintindihan nito with a visual aid. So, let's do a part 2 na lang.